Hello amateurs, welcome back to the Amateur Rugby Podcast, here to help soothe your Sunday morning hangover with some awesome rugby chat about the grassroots of the game. I'm your host Tim and, well, actually none of that's true today because I'm here to talk to you about the Great Rugger Run 2023. Well, what was the Great Rugger Run? This is the third edition now. Started in 2021 when I ran across England from Cornwall to London, 500 miles in 5 weeks, visiting over 100 rugby clubs along the way. Second year was up in Scotland, running 500 miles again, but this time in just 25 days, visiting over 70 clubs up there. And this year was from Wales to the West Country, visiting over 170 clubs as I ran 1,000 kilometres or 1,000,000 metres in just 25 days. This has become an absolute passion of mine and I'm delighted to be raising funds again for the M&D community, primarily the My Name's Doddy Foundation, but in addition to that, the 4Ed campaign and the Freddie Crisp Trust. I'm sure you'll all know the 4Ed campaign. Ed Slater, the former Gloucester second row, sadly diagnosed around 18 months ago now. And the Freddie Crisp Trust is the son of a friend of mine who I used to play with at Cheltenham, who sadly died of MND a few years back now. And the trust fund is set up for his future. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, the goal of this year's run was 1,000,000 metres or 1,000 kilometres in just 25 days. But what I realised as I was going around was that's kind of hard for people to understand what it is. It breaks down to 40 kilometres a day, a marathon's 42, averages out to just under a marathon every single day for 25 days. But I did have a little secret goal in mind that I was personally always aiming for. I mean, I say secret. I told it to pretty much everybody that I met, to be honest. And the run was completely epic. Starting out at St David's Head, Wales's most westerly point, the Great Rugger Run is just an incredible opportunity to catch up with old friends and make new ones. And I started with a really old teammate of mine, Simon Vickers, who runs the Griffin Inn in Dale, out there in Pembrokeshire. Caught up with him, stayed with him for a couple of nights and his family, and it was just amazing. And he did an amazing job of appealing to his customers. And it was at the end of day one, and he took me around the restaurant and shushed everybody down and sort of did a big speech. And well, I mean, I was exhausted. I'd run over 60k that day, but it honestly almost brought me to tears. It was incredibly emotional, and people were very supportive. So thank you, SV, for that, and thank you to everybody at the Griffindale that donated on that first day. Another thing I like to do on the Great Rugger Run is to invite people to run with me. I'm always saying it, come and join in if you want to run a metre, a mile, all day, whatever. Everyone's very welcome. But I didn't expect the first one to appear quite so soon. So having run from St David's Head all the way to St David's Rugby Club, I was just meeting the people there. There was 5 or 6 people from the club, one of which was quite a tall gentleman wearing full rugby kit. And as the conversation went on, it became apparent that he wasn't actually a member of the club. And the guy said to me, "No, this is Walter. He's from Holland and he's here on holiday." So we got chatting, and he ended up running a full 10k with me, which was absolutely incredible. So Walter, that was it. That was amazing. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again one day. And the Great Rugger Run really is all about the people. And I met some awesome people on this trip. There was a guy called Kev who'd spotted me the day before, but because of circumstances, he couldn't come and chat. He went back home, looked at my route, figured out what I was doing, and then ran down and met me at one of his local clubs the following day. And Kev was just a bit overcome with emotion. He was looking for a change in his life, and he told me that I'd really inspired him to hopefully take up running. And his goal wasn't just to take up running or run a marathon. He's decided his goal was going to be to run an ultra marathon. So that was absolutely incredible. When Kev dashed off, I was left there with kind of tingles up my spine that just doing the little thing that I'm doing could, inspire somebody else. So hope you're going well, Kev. And if you need any advice or whatever, just reach out. And another great theme of this year's run was running with the kids, running with the minis and juniors sections. I lost count of the number of clubs that organised a welcome party, a welcome gang of kids to run with me. And it's just the most joyful thing, feel a bit like Rocky Balboa. It's amazing. And hopefully, it inspires the kids a little bit in some way as well. So if you're one of those kids or somebody that got them organised, thank you so much for that. It's really absolutely amazing. And the Great Rugby Run isn't limited to just regular rugby clubs either. I visited elite clubs all the way down to the most grassroots of the grassroots. I visited walking rugby clubs, Beach Rugby Wales. Thank you to Ashley and the crew for coming and meeting me. And there was even an underwater rugby club as well. Sadly, they never got back to me, but that would have been another interesting form of rugby to go and have a look at. Just a word for the elite. The Scarlets were unbelievable when I visited them. They gave me all the time in the world. I was there for 2 hours. I got the full stadium tour. I got to speak to S&C coaches, loads of the players, including Foxy, Jonathan Davis. I got time with Dwayne Peel, who's head coach now as well. It was just amazing. The kit man gave me a nice woolly hat. So huge thanks to the Scarlets for that. And thank you to every other single person that came out and saw me on this year's Great Rugby Run. There are too many names to mention. So many people at all of the clubs. It's just, it's a little overwhelming at times, and it's quite incredible. But I have to bring attention to one person and one club in particular. Amy Hefferman at Keynes Cross was unbelievably good from the moment that she got in touch with me, and just made my life so easy and came up with so many great ideas to really make the most of my visit. In fact, I changed my schedule around a little bit to make it even more convenient for what we wanted to do. So Amy came up with this incredible idea to do a Rugby Olympics. So they got all the minis and juniors down, organised these 10 events on a Sunday afternoon, got the kids little printed out scorecards so they could go around all the events and get scores and get themselves marked off, and encourage them to actually raise funds and get sponsored themselves as well. It tied it all together with a barbecue, some food, and it was just the most amazing afternoon. This was at the end of day 19, and I was exhausted, but I could not help but join in with everything that was going on. So, I mean, that was the absolute pinnacle, but everybody else as well that joined in, that came and saw me, that gave me your time and showed me around your club and helped collect donations. Just thanks so much. And whilst I'm busy thanking people, I really need to thank my Great Rugby Run heroes. These are the people that helped me with the vital logistics of this Great Rugby Run. I plan it all on my own, basically. I do all the running on my own, and I rely on the rugby clubs, the people from the clubs, to help me out with lodging, help me out with food if you can, help me out with laundry, and also to help me get my big bag full of kit from one place to the next as we go along. And unbelievably, the rugby family came together and sorted me out for the entire trip this year. So thank you to everybody that took part in that, everybody that put me up for a night or did anything to help at all. Hugely appreciated. And I do just want to point out how against my nature it is to reach out for help like that. I'm fiercely independent and I like to look after myself, basically. But what I figured out very early on is that doing something like this, you need to get in with the people. You need to get in with the communities. And there's no better way of doing that than opening yourself up, making yourself vulnerable and asking for help. And it's made for a much deeper experience, much deeper connections with people. And what I found out is that there's just kind people everywhere. And if you've got a story and if you're doing something for the right reasons, then people are delighted to help. People are really keen to help. And I lost count of the number of people on this year's run who were almost tripping over themselves to help me and be a part of it. So those are the reasons why. And once again, thank you so much. So ultimately, the run went really well. You know, I had hard days, I had tough moments, some really steep hills through Wales, for example. But I made it all the way injury-free, and I'd even put a little bit in the bank as well, because my secret goal was actually to run 25 marathons in 25 days. So that's 42k a day instead of 40. And I was delighted that when I got to Cheltenham, it was exactly 1,050 kilometres that I'd run. Yeah, insane. And that wasn't all. I'd been convinced, because several people had independently suggested it to me, that we should do a fixture on the final day. A fixture that I was going to try and play in. So I organised my team, a collection of some of the best humans that I've played with over the last 30 years, including a mate from school, Martin Brown, who hadn't played this millennium, all the way up to people that have, been playing semi-professional rugby up until like 5 or 6 years ago. So we had a real motley crew, and we played against the amazing Egg Chasers 15, ably led by Andy Jarrett, and they've been raising money for MND for the last 6 or 7 years now. So it just made perfect sense. And to play it at Cheltenham Rugby Club, which was my first rugby club, and the rugby club where I met and played with Mike Crisp, who's the dad, sadly no longer with us, at Freddie, who we're raising funds for, just made perfect sense. The only thing that didn't make perfect sense was that I was going to try and play in this game, having just run 25 marathons in 25 days. And honestly, I'm ambitious. I have confidence with things like this, but I didn't think there was any chance I was going to be able to do it. I thought that I was going to feel brittle. I thought that even if I tried to accelerate or push off the mark, that something was going to snap in my legs. I've been plodding along at the same place for such a long time now. But there was some kind of miracle. I got the rugby kit on, got out there, slowly warmed up, and got moving, and everything worked, and it was amazing. And it kind of rekindled my love for playing again. And I'm going to be looking for opportunities to play more in the future in very social games. So thank you to Egg Chasers, thank you to all of my team that turned out, and thank you to the guys at Cheltenham Rugby Club who organised a further collection on the day, and we brought in a load more money on that final day as well. I'm aware this is a big long list of thank yous, but there's just a few more to go. We've got Halbro, who kitted me out in all my running gear for the run. Amazing stuff. They also did a great deal on the rugby kit that we wore for the Great Rugby Run 15. And to the sponsors, Piccadilly One Recruitment Company, thanks to Simon Alkinson, former S&C coach of mine at Esher Rugby Club, and Renouf Wealth Management. And we'll put the links to those guys in the description below. Go and check them out. And that brings me to the donations, to the funds that we've raised for these amazing MND causes. And I'm delighted to announce that we raised just over £1,100 for the Freddie Crisp Trust, just over £1,100 for the 4Ed campaign, and nearly £8,500 for the My Name's Doddy Foundation. Once again, thank you to every single person that donated. Your money will be well used. And this now leaves me thinking about the future. Will there be another Great Rugby Run? I'm not sure is the answer. I finished every other run being pretty certain I'll do it again. But the realities of how much of my year it takes up are really biting. It's not just the run itself, it's all the training, which is intense. It's all the organisation. Trying to contact 170 rugby clubs is nigh on impossible, let me tell you. This year, the added responsibility of trying to organise a game at the end took up way more of my time than I thought it would have done. And it's a real tough one for me because it is the most rewarding part of my year. But it also takes up about a third to a quarter of my entire year as well. So I'm throwing around thoughts. Could I do it in some kind of different format? Is there some other way that it can be done? Maybe a different time of year would be better. Or maybe I just need a rest year. I don't know. Maybe I need sponsors and maybe somebody to help me with the organisation. I don't know. There's lots of questions and not many answers at the moment. So I'm just going to leave that hanging there. If you've got any thoughts or you think you can help in any way, then please do get in touch. All the contact details are down below. And as I bring the Great Rugby Run 2023 to a close, it's just such a huge amount of thanks again to everybody that I've mentioned so far in this show. And if I missed you, I'm so sorry. Thank you to you too. And the best way to find out if there is going to be a next Great Rugby Run is to follow me on all the social media channels. I'm on Instagram at The Great Rugby Run, on Twitter at Rugby Run, and on Facebook as well at The Great Rugby Run. I'll be back with you next week with another regular episode of the Amateur Rugby Podcast, and it's going to be with somebody that I met on this year's run. So look out for that one, and until next week, get out and play.